Good morning, cadets. I miss saying that. And welcome to the YPSA. We're excited you could join us today. This year, you could not come to the YPSA, and I have to tell you, it's unbelievably quiet in this building. We miss having you around. So Sheriff Katujian wanted to bring the YPSA to you in your houses. Today is the first of 4 virtual YPSA events that we hope will be informational and a ton of fun. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Middlesex Sheriff Peter J. Katujian. Sheriff.
Thank you, Ken, and to the cadets and families joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Ken's right, this is one of the most exciting times of the year for us in the Middlesex Sheriff's Office. The energy of seeing everyone at the Academy, we're gonna miss that, but we're really pleased to be able to do this for you. YPSA, our Youth Public Safety Academy, is one of our most cherished programs. It's something we always look forward to, and my own children have attended the camp for many years. In fact, my daughter Isabel and my son Christian are signed on this morning and watching. So that's just really goes to show that my own family attends these as well. The last few months have been very different from anything any of us have ever experienced before. We spent a lot more time, online. We haven't seen our friends as much as we'd like. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to get together and to connect and to share what we do each summer in a different way. It's also important to me that we do this safely and securely. You'll notice this is a Zoom webinar, not a regular Zoom meeting, which allows us not to have any child's face or voice recorded. So it protects our cadets and our families and keeps us all safe. With that, you can expect the same fun and educational information. Youth Public Safety Academy is all about. This program is all about you and the next generation of public service leaders. Each week we'll be joined by special guests, including public safety officials from each of your hometowns. And each week's webinar will be posted on the Middlesex Sheriff's Office social media pages so that you and your friends can watch it later at your time. So make sure that you get your friends to watch this as well, or you watch it a second time yourself. I think it's going to be a lot of information that's worth seeing it again. Over the next 4 weeks, we will cover topics important to everyone. That includes fire safety and emergency management. It includes cybersecurity, especially in this time of COVID-19, when we're more on our computers and phones than ever before. And it includes current issues in our country, issues of respect and civility that you cadets might have some thoughtful questions and some concerns on. We wanted to start our first YPSA by talking about coronavirus or COVID-19. I'm sure the past few months have been feeling really unusual for all of you. You're not going to school, you're having to wear masks, maybe you're not being able to see family like your grandparents, which is really really one of the toughest parts about what's going on now. And it can be scary, and it can make you angry, and it can make you feel sad or stressed, and that's really all okay. I wanted to invite a friend of mine to talk about it. I'd like everyone to say hello to Dr. Elise Worcell from the Tufts Medical Center. Dr. Worcell has been working with my officers and me to stay healthy from the coronavirus or COVID-19, which also means that our families stay healthy and strong as well. Dr. Worcell is also a mom, and she knows how tough this time has been in working with her own children and speaking with her own children about this. So I've asked her to spend a little time with you, to talk about the steps you and your families can take to stay safe and healthy, and answer any questions you might have. If you have a question for Dr. Worcell, just move your cursor down to the chat button at the bottom of your screen, click it, and type your question in that chat box. Dr. Worcell, thank you so much for being our very first virtual YPSA presenter, and thank you for all that you're doing to keep people in Massachusetts healthy and safe.
Thanks for having me. I guess, it is a really hard time, and I think there are a lot of questions that come up with viruses. I know there are a lot of viruses out there, and what's funny is that this is not, we've heard of this term being called, this virus is called coronavirus. It's called coronavirus because it has kind of it's the word for sun, so it goes all around like a crown, and so that's what the actual virus looks like. So that's why it's called coronavirus, and it's called COVID or coronavirus 19 because that's the year it was found in. I know one of my kids was like, why is this called COVID-19? But the interesting thing to know is that there are a lot of coronaviruses. There's tons of coronaviruses actually. And when we actually get sick with a little bit of a cold, that, you know, you have a runny nose or a cough, that might be a coronavirus. But the tricky thing about this one is it's a new coronavirus. It's called a novel coronavirus. And we don't exactly know how it happens, but we know in the past, when you have animals and people together, that a virus that can affect an animal can change to be able to affect a human. And so that's been happening with viruses since the beginning of time. And that's what happened with coronavirus. The tricky thing, the hardest thing about coronavirus, this virus, is that you spread it, or one spreads it before they know that they're sick, and even without being sick. And so for most viruses like the flu, I remember having the flu even though I had my vaccine, and I got sick, and that's when I could start spreading the virus. But the really super tricky part about this virus, which is different than a lot of other viruses, is that even before someone has a runny nose, even before they have a fever, even before they can have a cough, they can actually spread it, and spread through the mouth and coughing, or even just talking or yelling loudly has been linked. So there's actually been one case in a choir. So there were 50 people in a choir, and they were all beautifully singing, and the one person in the corner was able to infect everyone else. So yelling or singing or talking loudly. And then we also think about, you might have heard the 6 feet rule. So 6 feet is sort of, if I talk loudly and I put droplets, little tiny bubbles of water from my mouth, that's as far as maybe those can go, 6 feet. We've learned a lot. Things that I was saying in the beginning in February and March have changed. And that's very frustrating. So originally you weren't seeing people wearing masks, and then people were wearing masks. And in Massachusetts, we have a lot of people wearing masks. And wearing a mask is a really good way to help keep everyone safe. I know there's a lot of stuff about masks and concerns about masks. I can tell you that doctors who operate for 12 hours and really big surgeries will wear a mask, a surgical mask for 12 hours, and they're able to breathe throughout of it and do well and do major surgeries. So most people should be able to wear a mask. There are different types of masks, and I know my older child, who's 6, prefers to have a throwaway mask, which is a surgical mask, because she doesn't like the way that the cotton masks feel. But my younger kid is okay with the way that the cotton masks feel. The surgical masks protect everyone more, but the cloth masks are really good as well. And they're really stylish. And I think it's a really good way to show who your favorite sports team is, or who your favorite rock star is, or things like that, or have like special designs on it. If you get a white one, you can actually draw things on it with fabric markers that can, say your name or say what you're thinking or things like that. So I encourage everyone to be artists around the masks. And let's see, we're in a really good spot in Massachusetts right now. So because we shut down schools and everything sort of came to a halt, which I can tell you, I know was very hard. We're in a good spot. So with this epidemic, there's going to be a first wave, and then we're expecting the second wave. So that's what we're sort of trying to juggle and figure out as we go into September and October and December. But with that, maybe I'll open it up. I know that there were 3 questions Megan had sent me. Megan, do you want me to start answering some of those questions?
I can actually, yeah, I can ask them to you.
Sure.
So we have a question from Meggie. She says, when does Dr. Wurcell think the virus will be over en masse? I really want to go back to school and see my teachers and my friends, and also go back to the YPSA camp face to face.
Wow, yeah. So as far as the virus goes, I think the virus is here to stay for a really long time. Even viruses that came, like these viruses like polio and smallpox that came like hundreds of years ago, are still around. But the trick is going to be, how do we protect people safely? And so when we get a vaccine and we get a lot of people vaccinated, and then when we think about, the trick number we like to think about is if 80% of people in Massachusetts are protected against the virus. That means someone can cough on them and they won't get infected or spread it. In my mind, that's kind of the way that we can go back to, I think what Governor Baker said was like the new normal. So we'll always have coronavirus around, but hopefully, I'm hopeful within about a year and a half, I know that seems really far away. I think within about 6 months, the first vaccines will be available. And then hopefully a year from there, everyone can get vaccinated. And that's the best way to go. That doesn't mean our life has to stop. I think we figured out more and more ways to continue to have fun, even when the virus is around. So keeping, you can still, I'm a big supporter of kids going back to school. I think there is a way for us all to go back to school. The kids can go back to school and be safe. We definitely need to hear teachers' opinions to keep them safe as well. But I believe schools can reopen. And so I am very hopeful you get to go back to school. There may be some things that are a little bit different, like gym classes, like gymnastics classes that my girls go to, or ballet classes. There are going to be changes. But I want everyone to know this will all pass. Just like other things like this, viruses that have come, we will figure it out. We're figuring it out quicker than we've ever done for a virus. And I think that's what you should remember. And I see a little, I don't know if Megan, you want me to answer that. Can you hang out in groups?
Yeah,
If
go right ahead.
And then hang out with else. Yeah, so that's called a bubble. If you have a bubble of friends, and sometimes I think about it like with my girls, if they have, a bubble of 10 people, I don't know where 10 comes from, but that's a smallish number. But the real trick to the bubble is everyone has to commit to staying in the bubble. So if one of your friends decides to hang out with another friend, that's outside the bubble. So it's kind of a trust issue with, so if you want to talk to your friends about hanging out, first of all, if you hang out with masks, I feel very comfortable. But I guess when you talk about the bubbles, it's about, well, are we going to go out and eat together and have our mask off, or hang out inside? Those are outside of the bubble. So your bubble, the bubble is the people that you can really like take off your masks around and really feel confident around. Outside of that, I think you can hang out with people if you're wearing masks. Masks are really, 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 really good at protecting. I think there should be small groups. So I don't think there should be big parties. I know both of my girls just had their birthday party in July, and we had 1 or 2 kids over, and we had fun that way. So I don't think there can be big parties, but I think you can have groups of people over. You can hang out with them if you say to people that a condition is that they wear a mask. The other thing to know is that everyone's different age plays into it. So once you hit around, I think 13, 14, your body becomes more like an adult. And we're showing that your body can get the infection and pass the infection more like an adult. But younger ages, it seems, especially down into even infants, it doesn't seem like the virus can stick to them that well. So when you see, I think, when I see little kids like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, it's really important for them to have interactions. And so I think it's good for families to create a bubble where little kids can have interactions with each other.
Okay, great. So we have a couple more. You may have already answered these, but our next question involves masks. Isabel asked whether they should wear a mask outdoor at places like parks or beaches.
So I can say each family decides these things differently. We wear in my family masks walking to the park or walking to the beach. And then we do not wear a mask when we're playing at the beach, going in the water, playing around the sand. There's a lot of evidence that outdoor transmission is unlikely. So what I mean by that is when you're outside and there's wind, there's a lot of stuff going outside, the virus can't be trapped in air that's not moving. So it's very unlikely to get infection when you're outside. At playgrounds, I have seen families wearing masks. My girls don't wear masks at playgrounds. Although if there's a family that asks me, says they would feel more comfortable, I would definitely oblige to that. So at each playground, I think has posted what they need to happen. So where I live, it says, if you can make sure you're 6 feet apart from everyone at all times, then you don't need to wear a mask. And the playground is big enough for that. So things like that, I don't think a mask is needed. But again, I just want to let you know, every family looks at this differently. And a lot of doctors look at this differently. So this is a decision that I've made with my family. And it's sort of a good dinner time or a lunchtime discussion to say, what do you think about masks? When should we wear them? When should we not? Someone asked if they found a cure. So most people who get the infection get better. So in that way, it's just your body fights it off. So, when we think about a cure, I think about HIV. Like at this point, there is no cure for HIV. Or for cancer, sometimes you can have a cure, sometimes you can't. The absolute most people, if they get this virus, get better. But some people do get sick and some people do die. And we've seen that the most in people who are older, so people who are living in nursing homes. So at this point, we have one medication, or a few medications approved to treat this. And it's hard to say that it cures it. It just helps your body get rid of it. And then we don't know actually right now if you can get it again. Most of what we're thinking about is that you can't in the short period of time get it again. But with the flu, if you get a vaccine 1 year, you need to get a vaccine another year. So it might be like the flu in that we're going to have to get vaccines every year. I think vaccines are entirely safe. I have my children have vaccines, and my older child has chronic medical issues. So I feel especially important for her to get them. So I really think vaccines are the thing. So like chickenpox, is it like COVID? You can only get it once in your life? Yes. Awesome question. So cool. Very cool thing about chickenpox is it's a different type of virus. So chickenpox is a DNA virus. So I think, I'm pretty sure it's a DNA virus if I think about it. Maybe not. But anyway, it gets into your nerve and it stays with you for your whole lifetime. So actually people can get chickenpox later in life called shingles. That's like when you're older, you can get shingles and it can come out again. But COVID, we don't know if it's like chickenpox yet. We actually don't know if it's a one time and never again, or if it's something that you could get again. Chickenpox doesn't change a lot. So from the chickenpox that your mom and dad got versus the chickenpox that your grandma got, that was the same chickenpox. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen with this coronavirus. If it doesn't change a lot, it might be the only time you ever get it. That's a really good question. Oh, no problem.
Well, I think that wraps that up, and we've answered all your questions for Dr. Wursell. Thank you, Dr. Wursell. We're actually going to have a COVID-related question submitted for the sheriff. Sheriff Katusian, Ben asked how your job has changed because of COVID.
Well, that's a great question, Ben. I mean, like with most of our lives, it's changed how we do our work at the Middlesex Sheriff's Office incredibly. I've become very close with Dr. Wursell. We've done a lot of work. I mean, our office and you have communicated almost every day, multiple times a day, right? And with Department of Public Health and so many others to ensure that we have protocols in place or things we're doing to keep a safe and clean and secure environment for our employees and those people that we care for. And that we also are protecting our families when we go home. So we've increased communication to family members of those that are incarcerated with us through our family services coordinator. We put a lot of messages on our website, dozens of messages, and we've worked with the courts to provide more virtual opportunities like this so that people don't have to keep going to court and back to our facility, that we can actually do it through video conferencing. So the way that I think about it is, during times of difficulty or crisis, you can also find opportunity to do things that firstly can be better, but sometimes actually things that would have been good for you to have done before too. So always remember that for the cadets, in times of crisis, we can always find opportunity as well. And sometimes it makes us better and stronger in the long run as well.
Thank you, Sheriff. That is all we have for right now. We're going to now turn it over.
Well, thank you very much again, Dr. Worcel, and thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. Helpful and knowledgeable presence for our officers, and I hope everyone here knows that. But for our next presentation, I want to thank a few special guests joining us today. Please say hello to Detective Chad Krogan from Hudson Police. I know that he's on here. And I also want to recognize Officer Kerry Kelly of Watertown, Tara Connors of Billerica, and Mike Horan of Belmont Police Department as well. They have been with us each summer for years now, and we're really excited they can still participate in this way too, because they care so much about the cadets. They want to make sure they're here for them, and they love this, what we do here. So we also have a special guest who recorded a brief hello for you all. Please watch this message from Everett Chief of Police, Steve Mazie.
Hello to all the Youth Public Safety Academy cadets. I'm Chief Steve Mazie of the Everett Police Department, and I'm really glad to join you and Sheriff Peter Katujian for this virtual Youth Public Safety Academy. The members of the Everett Police Department and myself look forward to this academy every year, and although we can't join you in person, we are hard at work keeping you and your community safe and healthy. So we'd like you to enjoy what we are able to offer you. Be sure to pay attention to the presentations here at the Youth Public Safety Academy, and remember that you too can be a public safety role model. Thank you from all of us at the Everett Police Department, and have a safe and fun summer.
Well, thank you, Chief Mazie, for your leadership and joining us this week. We'll have other guests kind of joining us with messages for our youth. And thank you to all of our guests for joining our very first virtual YPSA. It's my pleasure to introduce next our incredible and energetic and enthusiastic YPSA Director, Ken Doucette. He's here to talk to you all about summer safety. So while we're dealing with COVID, we always have to remember to be safe during the summer as well. So again, if you have any questions for Ken, please submit them by using the chat function. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Ken, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sheriff. And yes, Sheriff, summer is a fun time. Vacations, cookouts, travel to fun places, seeing family and friends we haven't seen for a long time, going to camps, or just relax and have some fun. You can still do all that and more. We just all have to think a little bit. How can we do this all safely this year? Lots of good news there. We could do all the above and be very safe. So let's talk about some ideas how. First of all, Dr. Russell touched upon it. We have to wash our hands this year. We have to do it a lot. At the YPSA, we always wash our hands. We've been way ahead of the curve on that for years. Not only for COVID, but for any types of, any dirt or any viruses or anything you may touch. It's very important to wash your hands. And then, of course, this year, Dr. Russell mentioned wearing your mask. We have all done in Massachusetts an awesome, incredible job of wearing our masks. And there's lots of masks out there. There's the mask you can buy in the store like this. You can buy these disposable masks that you see a lot of. Hey, and kids at home, you can even take things like handkerchiefs and make it. Hey, the cowboys way back in the day were way ahead of the curve on this also. They were doing this stuff for years, keeping safe. Hey, and there are some different supplies that you're going to need this year also. So I packed my YPSA backpack. And there's a few things this year that you folks should be putting into your backpack. First of all, as you all know, we'll talk about this more in a few minutes. Tom Brady would say, make sure you pack your water bottle. We'll talk more about Tom in a minute, though. This year also, you're going to want to make sure that you have insect repellent. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And then, of course, a guy like me with his head like this, we got to make sure we have sunscreen and lots of it. Actually, I use the number 50. This is something that we have here in the building. But you want to really get a sunscreen with a good high number on it. And then the new addition this year that we all have to add to our backpacks is hand sanitizer. So you want to make sure that you're carrying this in your cars, carrying it in your backpacks wherever you go. So a little planning is all it takes. The other thing that we all have to do this year is we have to social distance. And I'll share, there's a couple. I have Officer Pimentel and I have Sean here help me. They both have their masks on, but they're all 15 feet away. So we're well beyond that 6 feet that Dr. Russell mentioned. Hey, another thing that's important, we want to try to avoid touching areas where a lot of other people touch them. So areas like parking meters, elevators, handrails on stairs, benches. And then again, once you do, wash our hands. I think you're all seeing the theme there. Dr. Russell also mentioned about being outdoors. So even when you're in your car it's important that open those windows, let that fresh air in, so that we lessen the chances of ourselves, coming in contact with COVID or other viruses. Hey, a couple tips for parents, and these are really neat things that I've come upon over the last few months. Touchless payment options when you go to stores. Instead of using your credit card, instead of using cash, use the apps that your credit cards or your banks have provided you on your phone. Curbside shopping. This is the best thing going. I got to tell you, order online, pull up to the curb, parents, and then pick it up and they put it right in your car. Take advantage of that. Cadets, something that it's a natural reaction, coughing and sneezing. It's not an indication that you have a virus or something, but many people have allergies. There may be dust in the air, whatever it is. Just make sure that when we go to cough or sneeze, make sure you grab a Kleenex or a napkin. We cover our faces. Or if you don't, worst case scenario, use your shoulder, use your elbow, and cough or sneeze into that. Youth sports. We are so excited that a bunch of people can get back to sports. I know they just opened up baseball and hockey. You can't do contact or whatever. But when you're doing sports, make sure that you're not using somebody else's equipment. Like, here's my hockey helmet from when I play. Don't let somebody else wear your helmets. Don't let somebody else wear your gloves. It's very important that we do that to have fun, but also stay safe at the same time. Here we are. We're in our second week of a heat wave, 2 in a week, hot, humid days. We got to make sure, as Tom Brady mentioned, we need to hydrate. Yes, we miss Tom Brady, but his lessons on drinking water will carry on through the years. So make sure, as Tom Brady says, let's all make sure that we're hydrating and drinking our water. Make sure we're resting if needed. Put on your sunblock, your sunscreen. Wear a hat. I know you can wear your baseball hat like this, or when you have a head like mine, you got to make sure you have your big floppy hat that you can wear. Also, things like you got to monitor your level of exercise, stay in shaded areas, that type of thing. Make sure that you take advantage of that. Hey, cadets, you are awesome at helping out others. Make sure you're checking in on your elderly neighbors, whether it be a heat wave or in the wintertime. We want to make sure that they're safe and they have everything that they need. Be a good cadet. Because of insects and because of ticks, we need to make sure that we're using insect repellent. Have your parents help you with that. And then make sure that you check your bodies. If you're in the woods, out camping or something, or hiking, you want to check your body for ticks. Animal safety. We have a surprise guest coming up in a little bit from our K9 team. Sheriff, sorry to let that one out of the bag. He's sitting in the room with me, but the K9 team will always tell you in regard to pets. Make sure that if there's an animal that you're not familiar with, that you ask ahead of time if you can pet that animal. And actually, it's recommended at this time that we don't pet animals that we don't know for the reasons of the COVID virus. Hey, do we put a mask on animals? Some people have asked that. We don't put masks on animals because it's not safe to put a mask on animals. The other thing you just want to be aware of in regard to animals, I live in Waltham. I see turkeys and geese. Don't feed the animals because sometimes they get aggressive. And also, even in Waltham, we see coyotes, and you want to make sure that you're not, once you see something like that, that you back away slowly. We have to look at our weather this time of year. Thunder and lightning storms. Make sure you seek shelter right away. Make sure that you're aware that once you hear even a low rumble of thunder, that lightning can travel 15 to 20 miles. So there's a chance that lightning can strike. So make sure you seek shelter right away. Here in Massachusetts, surprisingly, the last few years, we've seen several tornadoes. So make sure that if there's a tornado alert, make sure that you stay away from windows and follow the advice of your local weather professionals. Including for hurricanes, we have to be aware of the weather forecasts. Make sure that, as we teach here in our student tools for emergency preparedness, make sure that you have an emergency kit available that has a flashlight, water, family medicines, pet food. Don't forget, we have to feed the pets, or other important family information. When you're traveling, we talked about the 3 healthy habits: wash the hands, wear the mask, social distance. In addition to that, hey, when you leave your house, make sure you lock your doors. Make sure in your car you don't leave your valuables in sight. Bike safety. We want to make sure whenever we ride the bikes, we put on our helmet. This one is not my helmet. This one is a cadet's helmet. So you just want to make sure that you wear your helmet. And last, if you're out and about and you get lost, our K9 team will tell you all the time, follow to stay in that location, call out every couple minutes. somebody will come and find you. It's important that you don't wander further. We also want to cover beach, swimming, and boating safety. Make sure that when you go to the beach, as Dr. Russell mentioned, it's important to still wear a mask, but when you're in the water, it's not good to be wearing your mask. So make sure you take the mask off before you go in the water. When you go in the water, make sure you go in with a buddy. Always have a buddy with you. Never swim alone. For pool safety, make sure that we're not fooling around the edges of the pool so nobody gets hurt. And again, beware of the weather. Over the last 2 weeks at the beaches, we've seen reports come in from the news of kids getting buried by the sand. So make sure if you're building big sand castles or building big holes in the sand, make sure you do so safely so that the sand does not collapse on you. Also this year in New England, and we've seen it the last couple of years, we've seen shark warnings and jellyfish warnings. Just be aware of the local postings at the beach when you go. And then last, my favorite thing of the summer, my staff knows it. I love to cook at my grill. I love to, smoke briskets and pulled pork and chickens. Make sure that when you're around the grilling area, you allow that 3-foot safety area. Also, you may have a fire pit. You roast the marshmallows. Have that 3-foot safety area around that. So cadets, this is summertime. We should all be having fun. Now you have some important information to ensure that you and your family are safe. Make sure you share that information with your friends. I want to thank you all for joining us this week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Sheriff Katujian, as always, the cadets did an awesome job with our first YPSA webinar. I'm proud of them, and I turn it back to you.
Sheriff, we have a non-COVID, non-summer safety related question to wrap things up today. It's about females in law enforcement. Juliet asked, how many female officers work for the Middlesex Sheriff's Office?
So we have almost 3 women that are corrections officers, including the head of our young offender program. But quite honestly, women have a lot of high-level positions throughout our office. Our chief of staff and our chief financial officer is a woman. Our health services unit director is a woman. Family resource and outreach coordinator is a woman. The head of our veterans program is a woman. And of course, Megan, our director of community outreach. In fact, women are an important part of our workforce, whether they're nurses, attorneys, teachers, and administrators, and many more, payroll, and so many other places. And there's also a woman on our leadership team who has a very special birthday today. So just in closing, let me just say a very happy birthday to our executive administrator, Jess Farr, who always has actually started as a counselor in YPSA and now has risen to the position of being really one of the most critical parts of how we run our office. So happy birthday, Jess.
All right, great. So I'm going to actually send it right back to you, Sheriff.
Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. It was great to hear your thoughts and concerns and see how you're thinking about this as well. Please remember, you can always email us at ypsa@sdm.state.ma.us with questions or suggestions, and Ken or I will get right back to you. And before we end, we have one more special guest I think you'll all enjoy. I know that many of you saw Millie in the video we put on social media last week. Millie is our therapy dog. But we have many canines here at the Middlesex Sheriff's Office. They work in different jobs with different responsibilities. And joining Ken at our training academy in Chelmsford is one of those canines. Please welcome Officer Pimentel and his canine partner, Pebbles. Pebbles does a lot of work for us in here and in our communities to keep us all safe. And as some of you might know from following our Facebook page, Pebbles celebrated her 6th birthday this weekend. So Officer Pimentel and Pebbles and the rest of our canine unit will be joining us in a couple of weeks for a presentation of their roles and responsibilities. But just for today, thank you so much, Officer Pimentel. And once again, happy birthday, Pebbles. In closing, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us for our very first YPSA virtually held. As you know, we'll be doing this for 4 weeks, so please join us next Wednesday where we'll speak about fire safety. Again, these are issues that are still we have to be worried about while we're going through the COVID-19 situation. So fire safety, very important for you and your families. As you may also know, we have a special prize for any cadet who attends all 4 sessions. That to do that, you'll need to collect 4 secret code words. So make sure you write this down because I'm going to give you the code word for this week. And that way you can earn a prize when you get all 4 code words. This week's code word is trust. Remember, this week's code word is trust. Tune in for the next 3 sessions, and you can get all 4 code words to qualify for a great prize. So make sure you log on next week for the next secret code word. And remember, you can watch a recording of this webinar with your friends or your family at any time on Middlesex Sheriff's Office social media. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. To register for next Wednesday's session, please email us at ypsa@sdm.state.ma.us. Thank you, and we'll see you all next week.